Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah everyone for joining us. This is the second episode of the Ali Brothers podcast, and I am delighted to have a very special guest here today with us, our sister in Islam, Shannon. It's very nice to have you here. Thank you so much for being here today. We've been talking for the past few weeks, and it's been great. We actually met during Ramadan. And it was quite early in Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was quite early in Ramadan. We heard that you existed through the sisters, and but we didn't know like who you were. We heard that some Irish girl converted, and we were like, oh, that's great. I hope the sisters are taking care of her. So it was nice to finally meet you in Ramadan of all months.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
To be fair, it was the Taraweeh, like,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
soon as I went, your mum was like, it's so nice to meet you.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
you have to meet my sons.
Yeah.
They lead the prayer, you have to meet them.
It was really nice. I remember it was right before Taraweeh, right before the night prayers during Ramadan, and usually during that time, because Hassan and myself were leading the prayers, we're usually like we're not interacting with anyone. We're like just focus because there's so much to concentrate on and focus. But as soon as if mum says something like, oh yeah, you have to meet this, I was like, okay, this must be important.
Yeah.
And that's when we first met. And I remember it was just kind of word vomit from both of us. Like, no, you have to be careful of all of these things and be very careful. It was just warning after warning after warning. Maybe we scared you a little bit, but it was all with good intention.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
But how has your experience been so far as a Muslim?
It's actually been amazing. It's kind of scary. Everyone is like, welcome. You're so welcome. Like, if you need anything, you reach out. Like, I went from maybe having like 20 numbers in my phone. I've got like 75 now, and it's all like sister.
Yeah.
And all of the different, they're like, take my number. Take my number, text me anytime. Come to my house. You'll come to my house sometime?
Yeah.
You'll come.
Yeah.
You'll come and we can talk and we'll get to know each other. It's so nice. They are so welcoming. Everyone.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary.
What's the best thing been so far that you've experienced after becoming Muslim?
It's probably the food.
The food. Well,
Everyone wants to feed you.
Yeah, and also you probably get like quite a variety as well. All
yeah.
the different cultures. You have Pakistani, Indian, Nigerian. You have all sorts of.
So cultured.
So, and not only that, but because you converted just a few months ago and Ramadan came, isn't it funny that we concentrate on food so much during Ramadan when it's meant to be fasting and all that.
Literally.
But it's a very special time that, and also it must be quite hectic for you because that's not representative of what it's like kind of most of the year.
Yeah.
So has that been kind of really daunting, or have you feel like you've adapted really well? Yeah.
I was so terrified. I literally took my Shahada and everyone was like, Ramadan. And I was like,
it's coming.
Oh no. Like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. It was just, I didn't know what I was doing. And I was trying to learn too much at the time. Because I was one of those people that I actually prolonged taking my Shahada for so long because I was like, I want to learn everything. Because when you take your Shahada, you are like a clean slate. No sins, everything's forgiven. You're starting like a newborn baby. And I was like, if I know everything, so naive of me.
If you know everything.
If I know everything, I won't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't know
If
what
only.
Literally, if only. So but I really thought that like I wanted to learn as much as I could, like the little things that you can actually avoid doing wrong. And then one day, one sister turned around and she was like, look, we're not perfect. The religion is so perfect. Humans were not meant to be perfect. She was like, regardless, if you learn everything off by heart, you're still going to make mistakes and you're going to have to keep learning. So she was like, I'm not telling you to take it now, but I'm just telling you that your reason for not taking it isn't really valid. She was like, you shouldn't feel like you have to be perfect. She was like, if you feel like you're ready to take it, then take it, because she was like, you could die.
Yeah.
Literally, she was like, you don't know if you're going to be alive tomorrow, so why wait? If it's something you want to do and you feel so strongly about, do it. So then I was like, let's do it. I was like, my reason for not taking it was so irrelevant. Like, I will continue to learn. I'll take it and then start learning. That's what they said. They were like, take it. That's your first step.
Yeah.
You're like, your belief and the Shahada, that is your first step.
But that's it.
Everyone
That's a
comes.
typical mistake. I think a lot of people who are interested in Islam who want to convert.
Yeah.
That's a typical mistake they make because they think, oh, you have to be kind of a certain level of knowledge or even
Yeah.
practice, kind of that you have to know exactly what you're doing. All the even not only the basics, but all the advanced stuff as well.
Yeah.
Which is the main thing about it is that you have that belief in your heart.
Yeah.
If you have that belief in your heart, that's really the only thing that's required
It's the only thing
for
you
you
need.
to be okay. I should take my shahada now.
Yeah.
I can convert because once you have that belief, that's it. It's on that foundation that all of these other practices
Yeah.
are built, and yeah, Muslims. People who are born Muslim as well, they make this mistake that they make things more and more complicated. But it's not that you concentrate on the foundations. That'll get you most of the way. That'll get you all of the way, actually. It's if you just do that, even for the rest of your life, you concentrate on them, that's fine. And that's another thing. Because of all the knowledge kind of being thrown at you, and I'm sure us Muslims were very excited to kind of fill you up with all that knowledge.
Yeah.
Have you been kind of intimidated by that? Is it really confusing? People are probably telling you opposite things when it comes to that.
Yeah, that was probably the hardest thing at the start because it wasn't just like oh, you've taken your shahada, welcome, you're so welcome. It was like, by the way, if you do this, that's haram. And that's haram. And we're only telling you, like, their intentions were definitely coming from a good place, but it was like, don't do this, this and this. That's not good. But then there was the other sisters who were like, come here. Take your time. There is no rush with this. They were like, whatever you do in your life, you keep doing. And we will help you learn slowly the things you need to learn. They were like, the first thing you need to do is just pray. Learn how to pray. Your 5 prayers. Learn them. Don't pray 5 times a day if you can't.
Yeah.
They were like, start with 1. Or even just read them.
Yeah.
Just start learning the words.
Yeah.
And they were like preferably learn them in Arabic because you can always go back and learn them in English. Whereas if you learn them in English, it's harder to change. So she was like, if you just, at the prayer time, put it on, like watch a YouTube video. You don't even have to follow the actions if you don't know them. Just sit there and listen. She was like, just take your time. Try and just learn as little as you can and learn it right. And then take it from there. So I obviously was a bit stubborn at the start before I took my shahada. So I kind of knew them already. I wasn't praying because I wasn't a Muslim, but I was like still trying to learn them.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was saying, but I was like, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Yeah.
And then when I took my shahada, I got a prayer mat. And then I actually started praying, but I was just following a YouTube video. So I would put the prayer mat out and put my phone on the ground and follow the video. Yeah. And that worked for months. I did it for months. Even when I could do it all, I kept watching it just to make sure that I was saying the right things. And then when I got the Arabic completely, I started reading the English with it. So now I actually know what I'm saying when I'm praying. But it was more so like, they were like, you can do that. Like, that's fine. Learn your prayers, that's grand. Take your time, da-da-da. And then there's other people like, no, you have to give this up now. And will you be okay not doing this ever again? And I was like, I didn't know you couldn't. Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's we've talked about this so many times. The haram police, they really come after you. And it's not like, okay, they're slowly giving you the knowledge, or this is what you shouldn't do. Obviously, you should know what you can do and what you can't do, the limitations. But if you've lived a certain life beforehand, you're not gonna, you can't just stop.
Yeah.
And you have to be reasonable about it, even for yourself. And let's say drinking alcohol is haram. It's forbidden in Islam. But even that, if you've been drinking constantly for whatever your whole life, it's not going to be easy just to stop all of a sudden. Even that, I would say to most, just taper it. Have the intention that it's going to be done slowly. Especially these days, addiction is so kind of rampant. You can't just. I think if you just stop it like that, it's going to come back even worse.
Yeah.
And you have to be. It's a big problem with the people who have lived their lives as Muslims, who are born Muslims. They don't really understand that. And with the prayers, especially the stuff that you have to do. Start 1 a day. Yes, there's 5 obligatory prayers, but if you do 1 a day, you're already ahead of, I would say, a lot of Muslims even. And slowly bring it to 2, rather than okay, it's 5 or you're going to hell.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Literally.
And it's like they don't talk about it as like, yes, God understands that you've come from a certain life and it's going to take time. They're like, no, it's from today. This is what you have to do. Obviously, you have the intention that you're slowly going to get better and you're going to get to that point. And we can't change what is forbidden and what's not. But it comes slowly. A lot of people who are interested in Islam or who do convert, they're intimidated by how the Muslims are, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're scared away from the religion, and then they never come back. And also, what's worrying is that's not what the religion is. The religion itself says, yes, slowly take it step by step, and just kind of basic psychology. That's what's going to make a practice last. Slow and consistent. But you've been doing really well. Despite all this, all these Muslims kind of bombard, all these contradictions and everything, and even this kind of idea yourself that you have I have to be kind of perfect, that it goes completely against what.
It does. They used to like nearly give out to me. They were like, stop trying to know everything. Like you're not going to know it, and if you overdo it, you are going to hate this religion, and nobody wants that. We don't want to scare you off. Like we want you to be comfortable in what you're doing and do it right, but it doesn't have to be right straight away.
No. You're doing it. You mentioned it earlier. Like, yes, we believe it's a perfect religion, but as humans, we're going to practice it imperfectly.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to kind of, especially for new Muslims or people who are interested in Islam, you have to separate the religion to the people who practice it, because obviously, unfortunately, Muslims aren't the best examples always of how to practice Islam, where we can be pretty bad at it. But yeah, it's really impressive to see that despite all of that, despite all these kind of different energies being thrown at you, you're managing really well and you haven't been scared off. Because usually, like I would expect by now, you'd be like, this is too complicated.
Yeah.
And converts in the past have discussed this with me. Say, it's been ridiculous that, okay, I can't get up for Fajr, for the first prayer of the day. Am I going to hell now? And if I am, I can't practice this religion because it's too difficult. They don't understand that most of us barely make it to the first prayer. Do you know what I mean? It's not, and that's that kind of goal for constant perfection. That's not what it's meant to be. It's meant to be about the effort, the intention.
Yeah.
And
when did you first come across Islam and consider it as a way of life?
I was with a group of friends, and I don't even know how it came up, but we were just having a conversation, and somebody threw in a religion question. And obviously in this room there was non-religious people, Christians, practicing Christians, and Muslims. And I was a practicing Christian at the time, like church every Sunday, all of that. And so basically on one side of the table, the boys were talking about the Quran and Allah and all of these things, and we were trying to like defend ourselves, being like, yeah, well, in the Bible it says, and this is what we've been told, and we know this, But we didn't have like the same facts and proof that the lads had. So our arguments just looked like useless. We had no argument against them. They were like, yeah, well, we know this because it says in the Quran that, and we also know this is why. Like, they just had so many facts, and the more they were talking, I was like, I think I'm on the wrong side of the table, because that's what I originally thought I believed in. Like what they were saying, like obviously you have a belief in God. God created it. If you sin, you're forgiven. If you repent, Now I know it's the same in Christianity, but the way they were putting it across, and they're like the intention in your heart, and you be good to other people, and all of this, I was like, maybe I have had a misconception about Islam this whole time, because I didn't know how similar they were. And I was like,
up to that point, it wasn't like in your mind that Islam wasn't an option for you. Up to that point,
it never crossed my path. So I didn't know any Muslims, and I knew it was a religion. And like, I'm sure they touched on it in school, but not in a way of like teaching it.
Yeah, it was your first real kind of.
It was my first experience ever. It was the first time I had ever had a Muslim in front of me. Like, I've seen them, but I never spoke to someone who was a Muslim. And these two were like me. We were all friends. So they were exactly like me, only they had a different religion. And when they were putting it across, and I was like, well, this religion is quite similar to the things that I believe in. So it kind of sparked an interest. And that's when I was like, I used to look it up, and I went to Google.
Yeah,
I didn't know
that's
any Muslims. I went to Google. To be fair, what I was looking up at the time was quite basic. So Google did steer me in the right direction. But yes, I know since then I've been steered so wrong by Google, and that's fine. But at the time, Google was my only source of information. And then after that, because the people that were there, they didn't live in Waterford, they were just visiting. So they left. Like after that weekend, they were gone. And I just had this like spark of interest in me, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to look it up, like, because I kept thinking about it and it wasn't going away, and I was like, okay, let me just educate myself so that at least I know what I'm thinking is right. So then I started looking it up, and I was like, okay, wow, I actually believe in that. That's a bit mad. So I kept on researching, and then I actually became friends, and we became quite close with two Muslims. And then, like, when we were all together, I would just ask them, I'd be like, oh, by the way, what's that? And what does that mean? And how do you do? And because they were in person, it was, I got a lot more information, because they would follow on from things that when you look something up on Google, you get your answer. You get your answer. That's it. Like, your question is answered. That's it. They don't go into, but this is why. And that's how it was just like, yeah, yes or no, da da da. So they were really like teaching me the values of the questions that I was asking, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's so nice, and all of this. And then a really close friend of mine who was a Christian at the time converted. So they were like learning the basics. And I was like, the two friends that I made, they were born into Islam. So they were quite educated. They knew a lot, and some of their information was a lot. It was nearly too much that I was kind of confused. But the only reason I was confused is because I didn't have the basics. I was asking them nearly advanced questions that...
it happens a lot.
It didn't really make sense for me to be asking those questions, but I didn't know what questions to be asking. So when my other friend converted, I was like learning with them. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, it was just basic things, but I was like, oh my goodness, okay, this is a bit mad. But then I was still going to church. And I remember I would go to church on a Sunday and I would feel so guilty.
That's what I was going to ask. How did you feel going to church?
Oh my God, I used to feel like... I cried in church one day. I was so sad. I felt so bad. And I was like, please, like, don't punish me. I just don't understand. Like, the interest, I'm not going against you. I don't know why. And all of this, I felt so bad. And this went on for months. Like, I kept going to church, and I was so all over, my head was gone. Like, I was so all over the place. And a part of me kind of knew, I was like, at some point I'm going to take my Shahada. Like, I know it's going to happen. I just felt so strongly about it. And even though I was so guilty for going to church, it was nearly like proving a point. That, like, the more I went to church, the more it didn't make sense to me. And the questions that I had gotten answers to about Islam, I was trying to get those same answers about Christianity, and I couldn't get them. So then I was like, look, there's too much animosity here. Like, this doesn't make sense to me anymore. Like, why? The biggest thing for me is that in Christianity, you pray in Jesus' name. And the Muslims said to me, they were like, look at it this way. And this is the most basic explanation I've ever gotten in my life. They were like, it's you and your prayer. Where are you sending your prayer to? And I was like, well, God, obviously, every time. And they were like, yeah, but in Christianity, they send their prayers to Jesus, and Jesus gives it to God. They were like, why are you... Give it to God. Just give it to God. And I promise you, the whole time that I was praying in Christianity, I was just praying to God. I would literally say, in Jesus' name, amen. But I was praying to God. In my head, I was praying to God. From then on, I couldn't even pray in church. I was just going there to show my face and see everyone. And the doubts were just flowing from then. I was like, now I know.
People that you would go to church with, could they sense that something's off here?
Yeah.
And would you talk about it?
Yeah, we used to talk about it, but it was in the sense of, like, you're only doing it because your friends are Muslim. You're only doing it because you're so close with
You've
them
been
that you want to be.
influenced by-
You're being
Yeah.
influenced, and I was like,
What was their initial reaction to that? Were they like,
oh yeah, they were quite angry.
they weren't happy?
No, and like we're talking like best friend, closest person to me in the world was like, you're being influenced by this because if they weren't Muslim, you wouldn't want to be a Muslim. And I was like, fair. I was like, if you feel that way, that's fair, and maybe you're right. But I was like, there has to be a reason that with them being Muslim and my interest being so high, that's not for no reason. And I was like, I can't explain it to you because it's a feeling. It's not like I really like Islam. It makes sense to me. The way it felt inside, it made too much sense for me to ignore it. It's not something that I could brush off. And bear in mind, if I was going to be influenced by anyone because of their religion, it would have been her. Because we were so close. So yeah, it was just doubts coming from every direction. Like, so I was like, look, I'm just not going to talk about it to you anymore because you're not really involved. You don't support it, and that's fine. Now that I know you don't support it, I'm just going to keep it to myself. And I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep researching. I'm going to keep learning and see where it takes me. Like, I never turned around and said, like, I'm going to become a Muslim. I was just gathering as much information as I could to make sense of everything. And what I knew wasn't making sense anymore because of how much Islam made sense to me. And maybe it was my fault. I never like looked into religion. So I just started going to church because I believed in it.
That's the kind of culture you were surrounded with.
Yeah,
as well.
literally.
Yeah.
Like I never turned around one day and was like, what is a Christian? Whereas because I believed in Christianity for so long and actually practiced, I was like, let me actually do my research here to make sure I'm making the right decision. And the pieces just clicked. Like, honestly, it's as simple as that. Everything just pieced together. And I was like, yeah, this is for me. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reception I got from everyone wasn't exactly supportive.
That's the toughest part for converts, the family and friends. And here's the thing: you can understand why they're being like that because they're obviously concerned about you. It's not necessarily that they're anti-Muslim or anything or they're anti-Islam. It's just, are you sure about this? Have you done your research? Have you been brainwashed? You've been hanging out with these people. Maybe they're not. They're really just concerned about you, especially your family. And the problem is, it's also because most people don't understand what Islam actually is and what the belief is, or we look at the media and we don't do any research. It's just whatever is on the surface. It doesn't require that much research to understand what Islam actually is and to realize it's not what's promoted on the media. It's not how a lot of Muslims practice either, which is a shame, but yeah, that's how it is. Did you feel at any point that maybe I am being like subtly brainwashed, or it's just because they're my friends and I kind of want to be like them. This is the kind of group I enjoy more, and it's more so that rather than the actual religion or the belief system that I click with.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember, like I've had so many doubts. As much as I was so sure, it would just like every now and again it would just be like, what am I actually doing? Like, am I doing the right thing here? Because really and truly, like, they have a point. If these people weren't Muslim and I wasn't spending so much time with them, maybe I wouldn't want to convert. But the way I looked at it was, if they weren't around me, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing it for them. They're just teaching me.
Yeah.
I'm just getting my knowledge from them. So, and I actually don't know, because who's to say that if they weren't around, I still would have looked it up. I just would have been maybe misled, or it would have, the process would have been a lot longer. But for me, like, they were there. And it was so, like, we would be sitting here like this. And I'd be like, oh, like, what's the story with the Prophet? Like, where does that, how do you do that? And they would tell you, this is what they did, and this is why people believed, and this is where that came from. They just had the information. And it was actually quite inspiring, because for me as a Christian, you could ask me anything to do with the Bible. No idea. I don't know any verses. None of them. I don't know a single thing, because in a Christian church, you pray about, like, real things, sickness and financial problems and health. So those were the things that I would focus on. Now, don't get me wrong, they do read from the Bible, but I would just, like, I never took it in.
Yeah.
Whereas the lads were like, they had the information, and I was like, that is so beautiful. Like, this is your religion and you know so much about it, and they were able to spread it in a way that was so beautiful. It wasn't like, you have to da-da-da. It was just like, oh yeah, this is the information, that's what we believe, and this is why. And I was like, that's so amazing. Like, you can literally go anywhere and someone can ask you about your religion and you have the answer. I was like, wow.
I think actually you're really lucky with that, because in most cases, if you ask Muslims, they're not, unfortunately, they're not very knowledgeable on their own religion. It is more of a cultural thing, because okay, my parents have practiced it, or I was born in a Muslim country, maybe I am Muslim. Much like what you're saying about you practicing Christianity, is like, okay, that's just the environment, so I guess this makes sense somewhat. Part of it makes sense, part of it I'm just doing for culture, or it's the norm. So I'm actually quite surprised that the Muslims you encountered, they had enough knowledge to talk about these things, because unfortunately most don't, especially the Muslim youth. They don't have enough, and that's a big issue, because there are a lot of questions with Islam and we should be able to answer them. So I think actually quite lucky with that you didn't kind of get, initially at least, this warped version of what the religion was. And it seems like you got some really good information in the beginning. And with regards to being influenced by people, there has to be some sort of influence, there has to be some sort of stimulus in the beginning for you to get interested in the first place. It could be your own interest, or it could be a person that is representing the religion a certain way. So yes, the people will influence, but it's if they're practicing the religion close to how it should be practiced, only then will it attract you, because then otherwise, most of us, unfortunately, we don't practice the religion how it should be practiced, and that's exactly what puts people off, because it should be the basics, like, okay, what are the manners in Islam? What's the respect for your elders, the respect for women? How is your communication with your children, with your family, with the society? It's those basic things. People aren't going to be. They're not really concerned about, okay, what does Islamic law say about this thing? They're like, how do you interact with people? Because that's the day to day. And that's what the representation is. Are you kind? Are you nice? Are you respectful? So yeah, you're really lucky to have that interaction, because most people don't have enough knowledge. And the knowledge, having a little bit of knowledge, that's really dangerous, because you can just kind of make up your own stuff.
Yeah, they could have threw me off completely.
Yeah, exactly. And that might be the kind of idea of Islam you would have for the rest of your life then. It's like, oh, this is like overly strict, or this is too, it has no value in the modern world. Which is the case against Islam a lot, which obviously, that's not the case. Once you learn the religion, you understand how practical it is, how beneficial it is to your kind of daily life. It's really quite something. Those friends of yours that you would go to church with, you're still in contact with them? No. How do you feel about that? How do you kind of reconcile that they were your close friends?
I know. It's kind of weird, because we just stopped talking, and I haven't reached out because I don't want to tell them that I've taken my shahada, and I don't want to lie to them. So if I contact them, I have to tell them. But. And don't get me wrong, I'm not being spiteful or anything. The reason I don't want to tell them is because I actually brought it up before I took my shahada, and I said, look, I think I'm going to take, or I said something like, if I took it, would you be there? Like, would you be there with me if I took it? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, why? And they were like, well, if you change your religion, I would feel like I had failed as a friend to put that across. So in my head, I was like, look, that statement alone means that you are never going to support my decision in this religion. So I kind of, like, in my head, I was like, look, if you're not going to support it, you're not going to be part of it, because this is probably the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. I literally changed my religion. I have, like...
Your whole life path, essentially.
Everything.
It's going to be different.
Everything. I've changed everything. I've risked so many relationships with my family.
Like
And this was when I spoke to them, that was before I'd like mentioned it to my family. And my family, I didn't really know what way it was going to go. Like, my family could have turned around and said, like, yeah, no, sorry, we're not having this. You won't do that and be in contact with us. You just don't know what way people are going to take it. Like, especially nowadays, the representation of Islam is so bad.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's not just like a religion we don't know about. It's like we know about it for probably the worst reason in the world.
Yeah, but
because of what has happened.
Also, like I completely understand as a Muslim as well why people are misunderstood about it, because as Muslims we practice the religion terribly, and even our interactions with people, we don't have that intention that, okay, whether I like it or not, if I look Muslim, I'm representing the religion.
Yeah.
So I better get my manners right. I better get all of this sorted, because maybe this person that I'm interacting with, and most of the people in a majority non-Muslim country are going to be non-Muslims.
Yeah.
So you should be even more kind of aware of that when you're interacting with people. Like, this is probably the only interaction these people are going to have about the religion. Like you said yourself, most people aren't going to do their own research themselves. So if you could, just by an interaction with a non-Muslim, shows kindness or manners, they might be motivated, like, oh, this person looks Muslim, or I've met many Muslims who have treated me like this, or treated me with more respect than, let's say, non-Muslims or other people, and they would definitely be interested. People, that's enough to make them think. But that's the thing, Muslim, I understand why that is, because we're not doing well enough when it comes to practicing our own religion. And we talked about this earlier, that you completely understand why your friends and family are concerned. It's not that they're anti-Muslim, anti-Islam. It's more so, are you being brainwashed?
Yeah.
Do the Muslims have an agenda? So they want to, they have ulterior motives. And the sad reality is that, yes, Muslims, just like any other religion, any other belief system, any other humans, you're going to have agendas. You're going to have ulterior motives. And maybe they've experienced that before and they can see that, or it's a concern I completely understand, especially from family, because ultimately they want the best for you.
Yeah,
it's not that they're like, we hate this religion or anything. It's just like, is this actually going to add the value that you think?
Yeah.
And another thing is that with converts, I've noticed that when they get interested in the religion, sometimes it can be, a lot of the time, it comes from a place of a lot of pain, and they see like this community from the outside. Oh, these people are together. The Muslims, they're together, even if they, all these different nationalities, skin colors, whatever, they come together during the prayer or during these celebrations, and that's something beautiful. But if they enter the religion, some people might think that this is going to solve all my problems.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't. It helps. It helps with, I would say, it adds more problems with family and everything. It adds a lot of issues. But yes, it can help. The community can help. The spiritual guidance, obviously, the connection with God, all of it. But if you don't kind of go about trying to solve your problems practically, it's not going to magically just, okay, poof, everything's fine now. I'm a Muslim. My life is perfect. No, especially when your family isn't Muslim, it's just going to add more and more complications, more and more problems. Like, you've lost friends. You're dealing with the family is obviously going to be extremely difficult. And with parents itself, it's so difficult because you love them, they love you, and you have to constantly, but you want to stay on the path that you feel is right. It's a very, very difficult balance.
Yeah, it is. It was like, the biggest thing for me before I converted was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. This religion thing is literally, I was all over the place. It was so bad. I just didn't know. I didn't know if the things that people were saying were kind of putting doubts in my mind. I was like, am I actually doing this for the right reason? Even though I was so sure. I was like, what if they're right? What if I'm actually being blindsided by this because the people that I have around me, they mean so much to me that, do I only like it because they're putting it across in a way that seems good to me? And then I was like, no. Stop that now, come on. It just kept coming and going, like.
Also it could just be like, oh, you just want to be part of this group.
Yeah,
because
literally.
it's nice or it's fun to be around these people.
Fun.
That's it. And this is a question, you should ask yourself, that is it your own belief, or is it just you want that kind of community and you currently lack it, or that support?
Yeah, but as soon as I took my shahada, it was like, okay, problem solved.
Yeah.
And then I had the next problem of like telling my family.
Yeah.
That was a whole other problem in itself. And it was like, because for women, obviously you have to like cover and stuff going to the mosque, or me personally, I used to cover going to sisters' houses. Now I didn't have to, and they made it very, very clear to me, like, if you don't cover Monday to Friday when you go to work or with your family, Don't feel obliged to do it with us. You don't have to. We don't mind. You know, do everything in your own pace. Yes, all of the rest of them would cover, but I didn't have to if I didn't want to. Now, I was so lucky. I really wanted to. I was like, this is the only chance I get. But I also had to leave my house covered in a house that sees me Monday to Friday going to work as normal. So it wasn't just like, by the way, guys, I've changed my religion. It's not going to affect you. You won't. It's not going to put in or out on you. As a woman, it actually is. Because you're going to see me covered, and you're going to, like, obviously for men, you guys go to the masjid to pray. That's not for me. I pray at home. So all of a sudden, Monday was with my family as normal, and on Tuesday at 5 o'clock in the morning, all they can hear is Allahu Akbar. It's not something that is just like, okay. It's like I am actually...
You would pray out loud?
Well, I used to watch videos.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
If they were in the whole...
They're probably like, what is going on? Like, this is... Someone's being...
Yeah. Who's being recruited?
Yeah, I was just about to say, who's been recruited here? That's dodgy. That's dodgy. You just start hearing
for
that.
them, like, obviously, with everything in the social media, like... Allahu Akbar means something so terrible. And I was trying to tell them, like, no, it means something really good. Like, you know, and they were like, so are you telling me that you say Allahu Akbar? And I was like, yeah, I do it like this. Look, Allahu Akbar. And they were like, okay. So
in fairness, if you're also for Muslims, the environment is such these days that if I randomly hear Allahu Akbar in, like, I don't know, a bus or something, it's not like, you know what I mean? I understand their concern.
I'm like,
you know, I completely get it.
Like, say it, Like, if someone walked past, if I was wearing a hijab in the street and someone, like, a group of people walked past and were like, Allahu Akbar, I would be like,
Oh my God, I would be concerned. I would be like, oh, what's going on here?
But like, for me, I was so excited about the religion. So I was trying to tell my family, like, everything I'd say. They were like, oh my God, can you just stop talking? But I was like, no, it's so cool. Like, look, this is what I do. And I was like, showing them how I pray and stuff. I was like, this is how I do it. Like, when you hear it, this is what I'm doing. And they were like, right. So obviously it was in their face. Like, I remember the first time coming downstairs wearing a hijab, and they were like, okay, this is actually real. Like, she didn't just change her religion. She's actually practicing. Yeah. So...
And there's a cultural divide now all of a sudden as well.
Oh, straight away.
Because you're not... the clothes are all of a sudden different.
Yeah.
And that's like... Of course that's going to come as a shock.
Oh, they were shook. Like, my grandparents were like, okay. And my granddad had said it to me when I told him. So I went to him after I took my shahada and I said, look, I did it. And like, don't get me wrong, he gave me like the congratulations, you know, once you're happy, that's all that matters. But he kind of put in like a, now you're not going to wear the hijab in the house, are you? I was like, like, do you want me to just like sneak out of the house when I'm going out and stuff? And he was like, no, don't do that. But like, I just don't know how, like, and he like tried to defend himself, and like, you know, I really, like, I'm sure it was pure intentions all the way, but it was like these people have seen you your whole life without a hijab, and now you're going to turn around and not tell them you're just going to be wearing a hijab. And he was like, I just don't want you to get hurt. He was like, I don't want people to say anything bad to you, or like, at this time I was like, my man was so high. I was like, let them say whatever they want to me. I don't care. Like, I love it, which I did. Like, I genuinely did. Like, I used to find so much comfort in putting it on and going to the sister house, because I felt like this is actually a part of it now. Like, and it made me feel like this is where I belong. When I went home and had to like sneakily put on a hijab to pray, and I would pray in a different room than my bedroom, so I actually had to go out into the hall. And I was always afraid of like bumping into them in the hall and being like, don't get scared, it's just me. Like, I didn't know what way to take it, because as much as they were like, you know, we're happy for you, once you're happy, that's all that matters, they just didn't really want to know about it. They were like, if I had been a man, it's like, okay, you change your religion, that's fine. We don't see it, it's fine. Like, you guys can go out in the street, like, you wear your normal clothes.
That's what I wanted to highlight, that for women, it is extremely challenging. This is like, men don't understand this. especially if you're, whether it's for girls who are born Muslim, and for example, it's so difficult for them because if they choose to wear the hijab from a young age, okay, you're standing out from a young age. It's already very difficult.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get bullied and you're going to hear all sorts. Now, if you haven't been wearing it and you decide to wear it later on, you're going to get bullied because you haven't been wearing it
Yeah.
before, and it's like, oh, you're religious now all of a sudden.
Yeah, literally.
And you're going to get made fun of. Unfortunately, not just by non-Muslims, but Muslims as well. I was like, oh, look at you. You think you're better than us
Yeah.
now. And with yourself, it's another level because, okay, you've converted and now people know you as a certain person your whole life. And now this is like a big part of your identity. And it's very obvious. Yes, you're covering up now. You're wearing the hijab. It's for a guy, it's zero difference. Like from the outside, you can't really tell if a person has converted, you know. And even for guys who are Muslim already, yeah, the skin color might kind of give it up, but we can just kind of blend in. It's not
Yeah.
really an issue. Nobody's kind of coming after us. We're not really obvious.
Yeah, like they know you're not Irish, but they don't really take in your religion. Like
They don't. It's
not
not
a
really.
thing.
You don't feel like, oh, I'm being looked at, or I'm gonna get bullied or something. I'm gonna
Yeah.
get attacked. Whereas for women, it doesn't matter when you start. If you start, it's extremely difficult. So that's I always say men don't understand that, like how easy they have it when it comes to practicing religion, converting, or whatever. Also, they're gonna, even if it's somehow more obvious from their clothes, or let's say if they grow a beard or something. As a man, you're not going to be as threatened. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? As a woman, you're going to be like, especially as a white woman, people are going to be like, oh, well, she looks Irish, and oh, she's wearing the hijab. What's going on?
It's like, you know, if someone sees me from the back
Yeah.
and they just see a hijab
Yeah.
and then they hear me talk.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they're like,
Yeah,
she's
like-
white.
Or,
She's white.
No, the accent doesn't match the look. What's going on
Yeah,
here?
literally, it's like, because obviously, like the first time I went to the mosque,
Yeah.
when I walked in, everyone was like,
Yeah.
she's white.
Yeah.
And then they spoke to me like, she's Irish.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Would you like some?
Mom, you've ruined our podcast.
Do you have coffee?
No, thank you, Mom. It's okay.
Oh.
You get some tea.
No cake though. Oh yeah, like there is no hiding it. It's like she is the only white one in the room.
Yeah,
Who is she? Where did she come
in fairness,
from?
I mean, I talk a lot of crap about how the Muslims treat each other, Muslims, but in that case, it's truly, they're just very excited about it because it's just really beautiful to see.
Oh no, and they say that all the time. They're
Yeah.
like they don't make you feel like, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
like,
no,
with your white skin, your pale face. Like, what are you like? Are you lost? It's like she's here and she's wearing a hijab. How?
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
if
yeah.
your
It's really
parents
impressive.
have not converted, how did you?
Yeah.
They all want to know the convert story. Like
Yeah,
how?
yeah.
How did Islam come into your life as a
Yeah.
white Irish person in this country? And bear in mind, the friends that I had that were Muslims didn't even live in this country. They were just here. So they were here for work. And the first two that were talking about the Quran, they were here just visiting. So none of them were actually like born here, lived here for a while. And I was like, that's crazy. Because imagine if there was loads of Muslims here.
Yeah.
I probably would have found this years before. But anyways,
Yeah.
the time, it doesn't matter. But yeah, they were all like, this is so amazing. Like, you know, you are chosen. That's the first thing everyone said to me. And to be fair, looking back on it now, it made me feel so comfortable because they explained it in a way that they were like, look, see these people in here? They were born. They don't know anything else. They were born this way. Like they might not even want to be here. They're just doing what their parents taught them to do. And now they're here. They were like, you were chosen. Whatever in your life put you on this path was not for no reason. And they were like, the fact that you're actually here, like you pursued the interest, took your shahada, and now you're here practicing because you want to. They were like, this is the best thing in the world. They were like, you are so welcome. You are more welcome than we are here because you chose to be here.
Yeah. And people who are born Muslim, they generally they take the religion for granted. They take the whole belief system for granted. They really don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
And also I've found generally people who convert, they become better practicing Muslims than people who are born Muslim because they've gone through so much pain and suffering, so many questions,
Yeah.
society, parents, friends, all of these problems, and that's why they appreciate the religion so much more because they've been through way more than a person who's just born into the born into the religion, and you just sort of practice it because that's what the family does.
Yeah.
You don't really know why you do what you're doing.
Yeah, you just started.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't really question it, and that's why they don't. That's why we say you should question the religion, because if it's the truth, then it should be able to put up with questioning.
Yeah.
It's not that you shouldn't question it, because if you do question it, then more is revealed and it starts clarifying, okay, why this is such a good way of life, why it actually helps. I was going to say earlier that it's particularly exciting not to concentrate on you being white and Irish and having an Irish accent, but
New toy!
it's particularly exciting to see because we're of a similar generation. So it's like, oh, okay, finally a Muslim, so we're connected, but also Irish,
Yeah.
and we're connected with the culture. We're born here, so it's like, okay, it's just really nice to see a person like yourself. And I bet a lot of the sisters as well that you met, the younger sisters around your age, they must be really excited to see someone like yourself, okay, a similar
Yeah.
accent, but like native Irish, let's say, without calling you white for the 50th time.
I don't mind. It's okay. I'm used to it now. No, it's so nice. It's actually so nice because they're like, she's like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's not like we're trying to fit in to this country. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she's now trying to fit in to our religion. We know what it's like to not fit in. Let's make her feel comfortable because she is now the only white person in the room. And like, obviously I'm just going
Yeah.
on a whim, but like this, like Waterford is small.
Yeah.
And if you are Somali or Sudanese in an all-girls school, there is a very high chance that you are the only one. You're the only girl. Like, so first of all, you're probably the only Muslim.
Yeah.
You're probably the only brown-skinned person in that classroom. That, like, some people, that's all they know.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's actually changed now, even for Hassan. It changed quite dramatically. When I was in primary school, it would be me and one other guy in the whole school. Even when I went to secondary school, it was maybe 2 or 3 of us. And yeah, the standard was like, are you guys brothers? Yeah. And like, for God's sake, it was like really. What's funny is the other kid in primary school, he was Indian. So it was like, it's actually quite complicated. No, first of all, we're not brothers. No, just because we're both brown. No. But
Did you go into the details of explaining the politics to them?
no, that's the thing. It's
They're
they're
quite fair enough.
they're kids, you know. They're not like. In fairness, I didn't get much like, abuse or anything, which is really surprising actually. But they were just curious. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so
They just don't know.
yeah, they just don't know,
know.
and you can't blame them for
Yeah.
like not knowing, and also, it's where they're going to get that information from.
Yeah.
There's not many of us. No, I didn't have those kind of issues. It was most of the issues that I had was inside my own head. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh, I'm brown, I'm different. I have to. Do I have to be more white now?
Yeah.
You know, just I want to fit in. Yeah, I think I spend too much of my too much of that portion of my life trying to be white, because I thought that was, you know, I just have to fit in. There's something inferior about you, not because of what the kids were saying, what society even was saying, and we're lucky about that in Ireland in particular, because in America, for example, it's very different.
Yeah.
They make you feel that way, but yeah, it was just in my own head that maybe I need to be more of a certain way. But yeah, it's quite different now. It's I mean, it's quite common to see people who aren't just white in even for yourself. It started growing the non-white population from secondary school, right?
Yeah.
It was very different. Because for myself, for example, in secondary school, if I wanted to pray, I didn't want to pray. You know, like, I'm already standing out. I don't want to be the weirdo with the prayer rug.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to get comments like, Aladdin, here we go.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Aladdin with your rug. Fair enough. It's
So Hasib is a closeted Muslim.
yeah.
And Sharon hasn't been praying correctly for a while.
It's
Literally.
but that's what it was. It was like you're a closeted Muslim. You know,
Yeah.
I don't like talking about it. It's whatever. Just I don't want to talk about religion, whatever. And yeah, I wouldn't want to pray anywhere. You had again. It's not like that the teachers wouldn't support you and they wouldn't give you a room or anything. Of course they would, but you're like, no. Let's just.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's whatever, whatever. I'm trying to adapt to you guys. So
Yeah.
It's also not fashionable. Like, why would you be religious and why would you be a Muslim?
yeah, exactly. And it was around that time. What was it? You know, the attacks in America and everything. So that started to happen. It's like, okay, I am definitely not going to make this obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do all sorts to try to fit in, and you realize, okay, this is never going to happen. It doesn't matter how hard I trying to be white. It's just not going to happen. And it's only then you realize, okay, I have to be more of who I am. And that's the thing that other people see that and they respect that. Do you know what I mean? You could be completely different to them, but that's the that's the reality of it. It's
To be fair though, they didn't need to be as nice. Like they could have been like, do you know what?
Yeah.
She's the only white one in the room. Good for her.
Yeah.
Let's give her a taste of what it feels like because
Yeah.
I know what it's like. Don't get me wrong. I went to an Irish school, so we were quite. It was a different environment. Like it wasn't as mainstream as English schools, where there's a huge there was like 16 people in my class at one point. It was very personal, and because it was in Irish, the students that you had with you were probably the students you started off with, because it's very rare that you gain someone into an Irish school. You just lose them. That's it. Like people leave and change schools. There's not many people that would start in new. So, like we had Nigerians in school, and we also had people from like Tanzania and stuff, but there was like one in my school year, and that was my best friend who was Nigerian. Like she was the only one. There was a guy from Tanzania, but they were both mixed race. So like people would look at them and be like, ah yeah, but sure your mom's white, but sure your dad's white, so it's grand, like, you know, you're still like Irish. Whereas actually everyone in school, they were all mixed race. They all had one white parent. So like for them, they still had some whiteness in them. Like, so I don't know if they felt like completely like, oh, this place is not for me. They still had like some sort of Irish culture in them. Whether it came from their parents or their white family or their hobbies that they would have been put in, I don't know. But I can imagine for people who don't have, like they're not Irish at all, to go into a school full of Irish people. Like when you walk into a room, it might not even by force, but people will look at you because, okay, well, somebody that's not white just walked in. You know, out of 30 people, there's one person who's not white. We've got one Somali girl in here. It's like
you're going to stand out.
You're going to stand out, and
don't matter what you do.
the standing out brings attention, whether you want it or not. And it might not always be bad attention,
No,
but it's like you will be looked at some point.
That's actually a good point. That at least in my experience, I know things are a bit different now, but in my experience, most of the kids, they're just curious.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, so what do you guys do? What's your background? Like, what kind of food do you have? I had I had Indian food once and it was really nice. Most of them are just curious and they want to know. They're just genuinely interested. They're not out to like bully you or which is impressive for kids. You know what I mean? They don't. You're so young and you're not picking on the person who's easy to pick on. It's kind of it's cool to pick on the kid that's different.
Yeah, it's like, I want to know.
Yeah, and they were very curious. And most of the time they're just trying to understand what this is, and they find it. And that's my biggest regret, that the kind of most of the pressure, it was just in my own head.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're different. You have to be more this. You have to be more white. It's all in your head most of the time. But people are, at least in Ireland, they were really nice. Most of them.
I strongly believe that if I had found your channel before I took, like when I was in my journey of like learning, when I was Googling everything and finding the wrong answers, it would have helped me so much more. Because for me, like I've said, like the people that taught me weren't from Waterford. So as much as they knew the information that I was looking for, they couldn't like point me in a direction to like meet her and she'll like tell you, or they couldn't bring me to a mosque and show me like these things. I wish it didn't make a difference, but it's like it would have helped me in my experience to see them for myself, like to see the mosque and to see what they did there. Whereas I was just going on and like, this is what happens at the mosque. I've never seen it before. I've never been. I don't really know. Like the community that I met before I took my shahada was very small. The community is actually huge. And you guys were like, when I first like actually met you and seen your videos, I was like, oh my goodness, I wish I knew these before. Like, because it's so nice. You're young. You talk about like real life things. Like structure and sorry.
No. Go on.
Structure in the gym and stuff like that's
Yeah.
people can actually relate to that. I would have related to that and I would have been like, this is not like your lecturers on YouTube who are just drilling information about Islam. It's like, I've learned off your videos things that I didn't know before, but it was in a way that I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. It wasn't like I was sitting there like taking notes, being like, okay, now I know that. It was like a conversation.
But that's what's really important about representation is that it's going to connect differently when you have people of your generation, of a similar accent, they were born here, and there's clearly so much to connect, versus a person who's, who has a non-Irish accent, who's much older, and he also kind of, perhaps they go about it in a more lectury kind of a way. You see like, this guy probably went to school with my brother or something like that, and you can, you went to St. Declan's, you went to De La Salle, you went to Newtown. Oh, I went there, or my brother went there, my sister went there, and that's it. Already, it breaks down those boundaries.
It's a connection straight. Like
Exactly.
I'm never going to message someone halfway around the world from a lecture or from something they've said, because like that just in my head I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Whereas if I watch one of your videos and I was like, I wonder what they mean by that, like I don't really like, maybe you could touch on that in another video. I would be comfortable doing that because I'm like, they probably live down the road from me, like, we all live in Waterford's not big.
No.
Like I've probably seen you in town. I've probably seen you, or we've been like it's like they're real. I know they're real. It's not just a person on the screen. We have the same accent. We're from the same place. If you talk about the gym and you say Goldstone, I could go to Goldstone.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like things that relate to me personally. So it's like,
those barriers don't exist.
no, they're down straight away. It's like a connection. I've never even spoken to you. I've never met you, but it's like they probably know. Or they might know someone that can help because we live in the same area. It's like I could text you and be like, look, I don't know any sisters here. Like I genuinely was at a point where I was like, I have learned as much as I can learn from my friends and from Google. I need people to explain things to me, but I don't know any sisters. I stopped a woman in Spice World and asked her.
Spice World, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I asked her where I could buy a hijab because I wanted to go to the mosque to meet women. Whereas if I had have seen a channel like yours, I probably would have messaged you and be like, do you know any sisters that could maybe help me? Because obviously, if you're promoting the religion, you know people in the religion. Like, you have a network that you could have put me in contact with the right people, because not only do you know people, but you would know the right ones to actually put me in contact with. And it probably would have made my journey so much easier.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I'd never seen, like, I didn't know things like that. Just if I had come across them, it would have made it so much easier for me. And yes, I was watching videos of people, like revert videos on TikTok. These girls, like, were in the UK and stuff. They were, like, in America. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, they're going through the same things as me, but, like, you would never message them because you're never going to actually meet up with them, and it's not the same over the phone. So it's never like a human connection of, oh yeah, come here, our mom would love to have you over to our house because she can answer your questions for you. Like, she can meet you in person, and when you meet people in person, it's so much different. They're real. Their intentions are like a lot more, you can kind of read them. It's like they genuinely want to help you. They're listening to your questions. The things you can't put into words on a phone, they're there. You can answer them in person. So I honestly wish I found your video before. But anyways, it doesn't matter because things happened the way they happened for me. But I would be so afraid now that if there was someone out there in my position that didn't have the confidence to walk into a halal shop and say,
oh yeah,
lady with a hijab, can you show me where to buy one? And like, I'm very lucky that I'm quite outgoing, that I took that upon myself and did it. Not everyone is like that. So I think if someone really quiet and Shy seen your videos, and we're like, oh, sure, they're from Waterford.
Yeah.
Even a guy, they would be like,
yeah.
I can text these lads.
Not even like you're talking about if someone doesn't have the confidence to do that, but also if you interacted with someone who wasn't particularly nice. I was like, who the hell are you? Like, what, a hijab?
Yeah,
Like, leave me alone.
literally.
I'd stop interacting. That could also completely put you off. So you were really lucky with that,
was
but there's
so
so
lucky.
many situations where people are put off their religion because of that, or because they don't have the confidence to do that. And that's one of the major goals of this channel, is to properly represent,
Yeah.
and for people like or for people who are interested in Islam, who don't know enough about it and who want to reach out to kind of understand more about it. And actually, on that point, I wanted to ask you, knowing what we're doing right now and our content right now, what would your advice be? Knowing our goals is to kind of spread this, to help people understand, and also to clarify any misunderstandings in the Irish culture in particular, because this is where we live, these are the people we interact with, and there are a lot of misunderstandings.
Yeah.
Because you have that experience, you've been on that side, and especially for people who are interested in Islam, what would your recommendation for us be? What's the best things we can do in order to kind of help everyone?
Ooh, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
Because I personally think what you're doing, like the way, like, so obviously your agenda is to spread knowledge.
We have no agenda, but go.
So what you're doing is like you're kind of spreading knowledge
Yes.
in a way that's easy for people to understand.
Overall value, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I, like the knowledge that you guys spread, I needed that at one point. It was like very early on, but it was the knowledge I needed that I didn't know I needed. It was little things like that. Like a lot of people, when you tell them you're looking into Islam, they go too quickly into it and they try and give you all this advanced knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's kind of put across in a hard way. Whereas if I had found your videos, I would have been like, that. I understand that. Yes, that makes so much sense to me. Because I think people forget that, like, you literally don't know anything. Like, it's not like I've been learning about this for years and I know what I'm talking about. I don't. You need to take me as someone with zero knowledge. If all you take from me is the fact that I speak English, like, teach me from the ground up in a way that is easy for me, like small points. Like, I don't want to have to sit there and watch a 1 hour lecture.
Yeah.
Like, because I will lose interest and I will lose my focus because it's too much for me to take in. Whereas, like, your 1 minute Ramadan videos were so nice, so refreshing, because it's only 1 minute and it's quick and easy and they stay with you. Whereas if you put out an hour long video, like, I might be concentrating for the first 15 minutes, but then I'll just pick and choose what I hear after that.
Yeah.
So for me, I watched 1 hour videos, so many of them. And like, looking back on them now, I don't even remember what they were about. But from like the little videos and the little bits of knowledge, I've learned so much more and I've understood it. It made sense to me. And I was also able to relate to you because of your accents and you're young. It's not like we live halfway around the world. This is not our culture. You're Irish.
Yeah.
You didn't throw any like Pakistani culture down my throat in your video. It was just knowledge. It was just knowledge.
Yeah.
That really gets like misinterpreted. It's like no culture.
To say to anyone out there who's not happy about how Muslims are represented, like, take it upon yourself. That's what I say to them. Take it upon yourself to be a better, more capable human being. Express yourself through kindness, through manners, how you're meant to be as a Muslim. And if you're not happy about the representation, if you're not happy, you can actually do something about it. Rather than sitting down complaining, become a really, really good version of yourself and concentrate when you're interacting with, we were saying this earlier, when you're interacting with non-Muslims, you're representing your religion, your culture, your skin color. And that's an opportunity for you to show that, oh, okay, we are not what you might think we are. And so be kind, be better, be more capable, be more competent, be good at work. And it goes with anything, like showing up on time. If your name is Muhammad, right, and you show up late every day to work, it's completely natural and understandable. They're going to associate Muhammad late every day, Muhammad Muslim, Muhammad Muslim lazy, right? If you show up early, Muhammad's always on time. All his assignments are put in on time. Or he's a really hard worker. He actually stays late sometimes. What's the effect that's going to have? That's not only going to affect like your boss, that's going to affect everyone at that organization. And you're not even opening your mouth about, you're not, like you said, you're not even talking about religion. You're not lecturing anyone. It's just you being, well, better in a certain aspect. We have so much to talk about, and we will be continuing these conversations, inshallah. We are really grateful for you to be here today. And it's really nice having you talking about your experiences. If the viewers have any topics that they want discussed, and we're also going to try to get more converts on, inshallah, that's it'll give kind of a different image of the religion, and also so many different experiences, so many different backgrounds, and it's really worthwhile, regardless of whether you're interested in the religion for reasons that you want to practice it yourself, or you just have misunderstandings or for education purposes. It really makes a big difference.
Just knowledge, just to learn.
So we're definitely going to be having more great guests on, like Sister Shannon. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for your time today, and inshallah we will be seeing you really soon. Subscribe to the Ali Brothers YouTube channel, Instagram, and we're also on Twitter and Facebook. But Jazakallah khair. With that, I would like to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.